Welcome to the Women of Distance podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Kramer. These are the stories of motivated women chasing big dreams in the distance running world. You'll hear from women who are crushing it on the trails, the track, and the road. These are not just the stories of women's results at the top of the sport, but the full story of how she got there, the challenges, failures, successes, lessons, and life between the miles. I want to thank SOAR Running for their support of the Women of Distance podcast. SOAR Running design and produce running apparel that does justice to the commitment and passion of runners globally. Their collections are designed specifically for running, high-performance racing, and also off-road adventure and endurance. Check them out at soarrunning.com. That's SOAR running.com. Women of Distance is proudly supported by Open Fuel, responsible sports nutrition to fuel your adventure. Check out their products and their mission at openfuel.co and use code WOD for 20% off your first and every order. You can also visit the Women of Distance Substack to read more behind-the-scenes happenings, including how I'm using Open Fuel in my own training. Women of Distance is also supported by our good friends and fellow trail runners at Summit Roasters. Roasted fresh in my hometown, you can support the podcast by visiting summit-roasters.com and using code WOD15 for 15% off every order. You can find all of these links and codes in the show notes and know that we really appreciate you supporting those supporting us. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Okay, I am hanging out with Ellaney Matarese. Ellaney, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited to have you back. Thank you for being here. Listeners will recognize your name from the Black Canyon preview shows. We got to connect a couple weeks ago prior to the race, and you are joining us here after the race. You were 7th female in perhaps the most stacked world-class top 10 field at the Black Canyon 100K. This was your first 100K. And when we connected during the preview episodes, I knew right away that I wanted to come back and hear more about your story and learn more about you. You have only been running trails and ultras for like 6 months. Took this step up to your first 100K. It went so well. Like I said, 7th place in a world-class top 10 field. I am really, really excited to hear about it. But before we get there, I want to come back and learn who you are before you got here, what brought you here. So let's go way back in time and start there. Where did athletics first enter your life?
So I actually grew up as a soccer player, which I think is kind of a common story among a lot of distance runners. I started really young. My family was always very into sports. I love doing anything active, even, hiking outside on the trails around my house. I think that's where my love of trails started coming like way, way back, but didn't find it again until very recently. I started playing
Where did
soccer.
you grow up? And make sure we cover that too.
Yeah, I grew up in La Cañada. It's right outside of Pasadena, but it's at the base, like right, maybe my house is 5-10 minutes from the Angeles Crest Mountains, the San Gabriel. So a lot of really awesome trails around there, and then Cherry Canyon hiking trails right up from my house too. We go all the time
Awesome.
with my dogs. Yeah, so it's a great, great place to live for a trail runner. There's not really anywhere you can run around here that's completely flat. So I think running in like middle school, high school, that helped me build a lot of the trail running strength too. But I started playing soccer honestly when I was like probably 3 years old. I did that up through middle school pretty competitively. And then I think my biggest strength as a soccer player was probably my endurance. I kind of could just outrun anyone on the field. I played mostly like outside wing position with the most running.
Mm-hmm.
And I think and late game, when everyone was tired, that was when I excelled too. So I think I always knew I had like kind of a capacity for endurance-based sports. When I was, I think 13, I entered my city's like local Memorial Day 5K. And I ended up, I think I was like second overall female. I ran a pretty fast time. This is one of my favorite like stories from beginning of my running career, because I actually wrote about this for one of my college essays, like the beginning of it. I was very, very small when I was in middle school, like probably barely over 4 feet tall. I mean, I was still not very tall, but I grew late. And I like walked up to the starting line at the race, and this like middle-aged guy who like he'd definitely been like a really good runner back in his day. He had like the full getup, like the compression socks, the like wastewater belt type of thing for the local
That
5K.
guy.
Yeah, that guy. Everyone knows that guy. So I like stepped up to the start line and like he comes up to me, he's like, "Hey, little girl, you might want to move back a little bit. The runners up here are gonna be starting out pretty fast." And it was my first 5K, and I was like, "Who does this guy think he is?" And I was like, "Oh, I think I'm okay up here, but thank you, I appreciate it." So I ran the race. Obviously, he took off very fast, but like the last probably 400 meters of the race, I see the guy like right ahead of me. So obviously, I'm kicking like into full sprint, and I pass him like great race. And so I think that was just an awesome experience and just a significant indicator of like I think throughout anything, female athletes are often used to being underestimated. And I think often I've been underestimated in not in running, but also in anything really. And it's cool to have that experience where you're like showing people that you can do it. And I think to my young self that like it doesn't matter what these big guys are saying to me, like I can do this and I know what I'm capable of. And I think I knew that even before the race when I said, I'm okay, I'm not gonna move back. But that was my first experience racing. It was 5K, like I said. And I did like the time was pretty fast too, I think. So I was like, that was really fun. I'm competitive for sure, and I like to win. I like to compete. So I really loved it. And then after that, my parents kind of looked into there's like a youth track group around, and I joined that. Ran. This was like I think I was in 7th grade. Ran a little bit for that, but then kind of had like some small injuries, and also it was really hard to do that and soccer at a high level. So I'd say like I did that for a year or 2 and then kind of stepped away from running a little bit. And then when I started high school, I really got into it, got very competitive, and eventually, like around my sophomore, junior year, made the decision to stop playing soccer, just focus on running, and then decided that I wanted to try to run in college, which I did end up going on to do. And then running career went on from there through college at Harvard, and then now to ultra trail, which I never would have guessed because I was primarily like an 800-meter runner in high school and even beginning of college.
Okay, we've got to come back and unpack so much of this. The first question I want to come back to is that story that you just told about the 5K, and I can see how coming out of that race you really earned some confidence and sort of proved something to yourself about your capability. Where did you develop the confidence to stand at the front of the start line and when someone questioned if you should be there to hold your own? Like where did that confidence come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I owe a lot to like my parents for always being super supportive of me, and they've always taught me like, you can do anything if you put your mind to it, which maybe that's not entirely true, but if you live believing that's true, then you're going to accomplish so much more than you would have otherwise. So I mean, walking up to the start line, I was like, well, I want to start at the front. I don't want to start further back and have people like get a head start on me. So logically, I just walked up to the front and I was like, well, I'm going to run as fast as I can for as long as I can and like until I can't anymore. And I think when the guy came up to me, I was kind of a little bit pissed off and was like, who does he think he is? Like, he doesn't even know how fast I can run. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, like, I kind of shrugged it off. I was like, I'm gonna stay here. Like, I think an attitude that I've had more so recently than I think when I was younger. I put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed and, compete at a high level. But I think my attitude now is like, I'm gonna give it the best that I can, and not be afraid of failure, but more so just go for it. set big goals. And if they don't happen, it's better to know that I tried and I gave everything I could to try to achieve those things.
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, come back then to high school. You said you started trying track, ended up making the transition over from soccer to full time running. What
Mhm.
did you find that you were enjoying about it so much that made you want to make that transition?
Yeah, so I did both cross country and track, just to clarify.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that soccer was
No,
the
I
same
didn't. I
season.
technically didn't. I didn't tell you that. So there's no way you would have known. But so soccer is winter, cross country is fall, and then track is spring. So I did do all
Oh, okay. Different.
for like my first couple years, and I was still playing club soccer. Like I think my first couple years, stopped club, was just playing kind of for fun on the school team. And then when it got to the point where I was like scared of getting injured for track while playing soccer, that's how I knew kind of my heart wasn't in it so much anymore. Cross country, I loved I guess I'll start with cross country because that's kind of where I started, beginning of freshman year. I loved just being able to, like, push myself to my limits and continue improving, being able to, like, compete. I loved that it was both, like, you could compete at the individual level, but also the team aspect of it, I really, really loved, and all of my teammates were so awesome. I also think it's different in the sense that, like, soccer, you kind of have, like, JV, varsity, different positions, different like cross country, we were all kind of together, running together, even often with the boys team. And just the sense of community, I think, in all running, but in cross country especially, and now I think in trail a lot, is I think something special and not something that I've experienced in other sports to the same degree.
Hey, folks, quick interruption to make sure to say thank you to Open Fuel for supporting the Women of Distance podcast. Open Fuel is responsible sports nutrition to fuel your adventure. Check them out at openfuel.co. Right now, I'm loving their Ultra Fuel drink mix with 60 grams of carbs and 500 milligrams of sodium all in one serving. Soon, they'll also be adding a gel mix to their product lineup. Again, check them out at openfuel.co and use code WOD to get 20% off your order every time and support the podcast at the same time. Find the link and the code in the show notes. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, what events do you feel like you felt like you had a talent for or that you were really enjoying learning and developing yourself in?
Yeah, so I'd say through high school, I ran the 3,200 one time and hated it. I really I really enjoyed the 800 and the mile. I was best at the 800, I think, and that was, like, what I really focused on in my later years. Although I love racing the mile because I think it's and through college, I enjoyed the mile more because there's a little bit more time for some tactical aspects, whereas the 800, you're just, like, going and you're trying not to die. You feel like you're sprinting the whole time. But those were kind of where I gravitated towards just because I did have more speed for a distance runner, I think. And then my senior year of college, I did the steeplechase, which I'm sad I didn't get the opportunity to do that more because I really, really loved it. I think it's just so fun it's so much more engaging when you have hurdles and a water jump. And it was kind of a cool new skill to learn. It brought like something new and exciting to a sport that I had done for so many years, and I ended up doing very well in it. Probably my best event of my college career, I'd say.
Okay.
And still hope to maybe come back and do a couple steeplechases in the future at some point in my life.
Okay, before we get to college, coming back to high school, you mentioned at some point there that you knew that you wanted to run collegiately. Talk a little bit about your or what opportunities you feel like you had available to you making that transition from high school to college and what made you choose the path that you did.
Yeah, so it was really hard just because my junior year, I think it was junior year track season when, I think for most people that's where you start to figure it out and actually get good and get the recruitable times. Like I had been improving since my freshman year, but hadn't done anything really spectacular yet. and was hoping for that to happen at that point, or at least have some better performances that would help with the recruiting process. But that was when COVID hit. So because of
Mm.
that, I still remember climbing over the fence at a track like 30 minutes away from my house that was technically open to go film myself running an 800-meter time trial to send to coaches because I didn't have the
Wow.
opportunity, like, yeah, to run any races. So that made it hard, and that also made it that we couldn't have any official visits either. So,
Yeah.
because of that, like, I didn't feel like I got to see what the schools were even like. I definitely had a lot of phone calls with people on the teams, and some local schools. So I think really what I was considering in the end were my top 3 were probably, Harvard, Princeton, and UCLA. And I was talking to all of the coaches there. UCLA, I can't remember if at this point when I was making the decision, if I had already gotten in or like if the coach was said he would support me and I knew I had a spot if I wanted it. And I love California, so I would have been happy staying here. But Princeton eventually offered me like how it works with the Ivy Leagues is they offer what's called like a likely letter, which means you're like likely to get in. But that's essentially a recruiting spot, and you're essentially almost guaranteed to get in unless something's like super off with your application. So they had offered me a likely letter. And then Harvard didn't have any like official spots left. So the coach said, my coach, Coach Jody, who obviously I ended up going to Harvard, said, spoiler, said that he could write me like what's a letter of support that's kind of just like letter of recommendation, but it's not a guarantee that you'll get in. And he told me like based on my application, he was confident I'd get in, but obviously couldn't guarantee it. But I had to tell Princeton no before I would know if I got into Harvard. So my mom is like
Wow.
still to this day, she's not mad at me because it obviously worked out, but she's like, I can't believe you did that. Like, I'm not letting any of my other children take that risk. I was pretty much ready to like call the Princeton coach and be like, yeah, like I want to come, like I'll take the spot. And, like, I was about to call and I was like, I don't know. I just don't feel like this is the right decision. And, like, not being able to visit either was hard because I didn't feel like I knew what they were like. But talking to the people on the team, like, I had a bunch of Zoom calls with people on the team because I was like, I really wanna get to know as much of the team as I can without visiting. So I specifically asked the coaches if I could do that. I just felt more of a connection to the Harvard girls, and I felt like it seemed like it would be a better fit. I liked my coach and his kind of training structure, I think was a little more similar to what I was doing in high school maybe, and that's why I liked it. But also, like, I think he's a very good coach, and that was what I thought when I, was committing, so I decided to take the chance, and fortunately, it worked out, but I think I also was happy to take that chance because I knew that if I didn't, I could go to UCLA, which I would have been super happy with as well.
I'm hearing this is, I think, going to be a recurring theme for you of like, if there's something you really want, just try and see what happens. And, if you don't do that, then you're always going to wonder, what if I had tried? Or, yeah, I'm seeing
I
this
love that you
pattern
said
coming up again.
you only get so many opportunities, and it's important that you take them when they do come. And I think you will regret it if you don't, and often I think that what feels right, and sometimes it's not the path you originally envisioned for yourself, but sometimes it's going to be an even better path than what you could have originally imagined.
Love it. All right. So, talk a little bit about academics. I feel like running is obviously a big motivator for where you went to college and the choices that you made. But Harvard is probably best known for its academics. What made you decide to go the Ivy League route, and what did you study in school?
Yeah, so academics were obviously very important to me. I was pre-med and am applying to medical school right now. But I do think that obviously Harvard has a great reputation. It also has some really great, world famous professors. And I got to take some very awesome classes. some random ones, two of my favorites are I did the science of cooking, which was really cool. It was all about like chemistry and physics in cooking, and we got to actually go in lab and cook stuff, which was really cool. Baking is one of my other passions for sure. And then I majored in neuroscience, and then I did a secondary in music. And I got to take a really
Hmm.
cool music class, Renaissance performance and culture, and we learned to play the viola da gamba, which is I mean, no one really plays it anymore. It's a Renaissance instrument. It's kind of like a combination between a cello and a guitar. So it's like you hold it and play it kind of like a cello, and it's similar size. There's actually three different sizes, but I played the bigger one, which is like a cello. But it has six strings, and then it also has frets like a guitar. So that was a really cool experience to not only learn about the performance and culture of music during that time period, but also get to experience it and play this very cool instrument. I'm sure other schools have awesome programs like that too, but I think Harvard does offer a wide range of opportunities, and to be able to do that when my main focus was neuroscience, biology, medicine, that sort of thing was really, really cool. I actually did my thesis. I did combine the music and the neuroscience. I worked in a lab called the Mind Lab through Northeastern, and they study the effects of music on the brain. So my thesis was looking at the diffusion tensor images, which are basically a type of brain scan that shows like the white matter and gray matter composition of the brain. Uh, for a study that we did that used music and then gamma frequency based lights. So it was basically flashing lights in time with music, but this particular gamma frequency, that's the frequency your neurons operate at, or some of your neurons operate at, as a treatment for Alzheimer's disease. So that was a really,
Wow.
really cool experience. Yeah, hopefully I explained that in not too sciencey terms that it makes sense. But that was an awesome experience through college, and it was super cool to be able to combine my two of my biggest interests. I also worked in a lab through Dana-Farber, the Cancer Institute in Boston, that we did like exercise-based interventions in cancer patients, and a lot of
Hmm.
like exercise physiology stuff. So that's something that I'm obviously a little bit interested in my background as a runner. So I love all of the exercise physiology and science behind running and training, and I think that's also super big, even more so in ultra running, because some of those biological factors are even more important. So that's something I really love. But I think Harvard was amazing overall because it gave me the opportunity to like explore and combine a lot of my different passions. And I think I've always loved to be able to explore the things that I'm passionate about outside of academics through like almost academic scientific lines. Obviously, it's good to have some separation between both of them and do things that I just enjoy outside of academics, but it is really cool to be able to understand them like scientifically and from an academic perspective.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I can really see you light up as you're talking about these things and the way that they interest you and engage you. And very cool. Amazing. Um, Coming back to running after talking about neuroscience, elaborate a little bit on your collegiate career and just sort of what was that transition like from high school to college? What were you learning about yourself, both as an athlete, as a student, as a human? And where did those opportunities evolve as you were coming toward the end of your collegiate career?
Yeah, so I think the first year was definitely a very big transition. I was moving across the country. I'd never like lived in the cold or the snow, which was a transition. Also it was obviously academically rigorous and the training was hard. A lot of the team actually had like anemia, low iron our freshman year,
Mm.
myself included. Luckily not too severely, but I think it did affect my performance. So my freshman year was definitely kind of a bit of an adjustment year. I didn't do anything too spectacular running wise. I don't think I even ran as fast as I did in high school my freshman year, but I think that's pretty common, because you're really just figuring out how to live on your own. And then I think each year going forward from there, it got a little bit better. I started to figure things out more, adapting to the training, adapting to the academics, growing up a little bit and living on my own. But I think looking back, I wouldn't want to change it. I think it was, there was some things sometimes that I was definitely struggling and figuring it out, but I think learning to balance both academics and running helped me grow immensely as a person. And I had the best experiences with all of my teammates, all of my friends there. My senior year, my sister was actually a freshman on the team. So getting to so we were teammates in high school too when she was a freshman and I was a senior. So getting to be teammates with her again was super special. And I'm super grateful for that experience too.
That's I want to take a moment to thank SOAR Running for their support. SOAR Running design and produce running apparel that does justice to the commitment and passion of runners globally. Encompassing textile innovation, pioneering design technology, sports science, and the real world experiences of runners. Their collections are designed specifically for running, for high performance racing, and also for off road adventure and endurance. And that's what I'm most excited about. Their trail line is specifically designed to be technical and durable for long adventures. It is high performance trail gear, blending innovative fabrics and detailing for off road resilience, function, and endurance. SOAR's innovation and ground up approach to product development results in a new way of thinking about trail running apparel. Check them out at soarrunning.com. That's SOAR running.com.
Awesome. Do you, as you were coming to the end of your collegiate running career, were you seeking or interested in opportunities to continue running professionally after college, or was that not a path that you felt like you were interested in taking?
So I think as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I started steeplechase my senior year, and I ran at the first round of the NCAA's, and well, I had bronchitis but that week, like as I was graduating, I graduated, jumped on a plane, and then raced the next day. So
Wow.
yeah, there's a lot going on. I think it was a lot emotionally, and I really wanted to both graduate and run. I actually raced 2 days after, so I had one full day to like recover a little bit in between. But because I was also so sick, I don't think that was enough. And wasn't my best race of my career. But I did feel like I still had a lot left to give. And I think I said that I felt like each year I was still figuring it out a little bit more. I think by my senior year, I felt like I was finally starting to figure it out. And I was loving running more than ever. And I didn't really know what was next. I think running professionally on the track was not realistic based on where my times were at least straight out of college. But I knew I wanted to keep doing it in some capacity. I ran one more steeplechase after regionals at Portland Track Festival, which was really fun. And I was trying to get into another race, but I'd only ran the steeplechase like 3 or 4 times. And I was trying to get into, I think it was one of the like more local sound ones that was in Pasadena. And I like emailed asking like, oh, I know I'm like 10 seconds off the entry standard, but I just started, like I've only ran this race 3 times. I know I can run a lot faster. Um, is there any way I can get entry? And they're like, no. So I was like, okay, well, I tried. Something that my grandpa says that I think is a great way to live is if you don't ask, the answer is already no. So I try to apply that and not being afraid to ask about things, obviously within reason and respectfully. But I think that has opened a lot of doors for me, just asking like, hey, is it possible? Like, I get it if it's not, but so that one didn't turn out. But I was a little bit sad about that because I wanted steeplechase isn't really something you can like do it open meet. There's
Right.
not
As
many
a
meets.
hobby.
Yeah. And I was kind of in a difficult in between place where I wasn't quite good enough to run professionally, but I was also like, if I went to local meets, there wouldn't be enough competition for me. So it's hard to figure out. I knew I wanted to keep running, but I didn't know like how I was going to do that. So I wanted to figure out what what was next in terms of running for me. So that was actually when I found trail running, because I was just Googling. I think I was asking ChatGPT even. I looked for like any local races, and then I found one, I don't remember even when it was, that like had prize money, and I was like, "Ooh, that would be really cool. I wanna run a race that I can maybe win some prize money." Like, because yes, prize money's great, but also it just makes it fun, to feel like you're winning something. So I found, a local SoCal trail race. It was a trail 10K, that had $500 prize money, and I looked at, like, the times from previous years, the course record, and I was like, 45 or, like, 50-minute 10K? I could do that easily. Like, I should totally run this race. And obviously, I was not accounting for the fact that it was straight up a mountain. And I ran the race. This was a week after my last steeplechase. So I have not run since then. I had barely been running. I guess I was very rested. But that was one of the hardest races I've ever run. I just was not expecting it to be so steep and so hard. So I did win and I got the course record, which was super, super fun. And I've done a ton of more of these SoCal trail races since then. The owners of the organization, Daniel and Tina, are husband and wife, and they are the best. They put on so many super cool local races around Southern California. And I've gotten close with both of them since then. They actually put me in contact with my now coach, which has been amazing. And I actually just ran last weekend just for fun. They had they had 100K, 50K, 25K, and 11K. I ran the 11K at Tejon Ranch, which is this amazing like property that's 250,000 acres, private land. They rented it out for the race. And it was awesome because there's this incredible network of trails that no one has ever run on, which is kind of tragic, but it was very cool to be able to run on it this past weekend.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, we got to back up a little bit though, because we're coming back to post collegiate. I want to ask too, before we get too deep into trails, you had this fascinating, multifaceted undergraduate program at Harvard. You graduated Harvard and then discovered the trails like pretty much right after. What did you, or what does your academic and professional path look like off of the run in terms of what you are doing next for schooling or career?
Yeah, so the plan was to take a gap year post grad. I'm to apply to medical school. So I'm in the process of applying to medical school right now. Waiting to hear back from a couple places, hopefully soon. And then I'll have more of an idea on deciding what's next. In the meantime, I've continued working part-time remote for the lab that I worked in, Dana-Farber, the Cancer Institute undergrad. And I also just started a new job with Ninja One, which is a IT like remote monitoring and management company. So that's what I'm doing right now, but hoping to go back to medical school either this year or sorry, this year, this fall, or perhaps, as we talked about a little bit previously, maybe taking one more year before going back to school, maybe focus solely, or not solely, but to have more time to focus on the trail running a little bit for at least one more year, and then see where the road takes me. I think I'm open to my path changing from what I originally thought it was going to be. I know I definitely still do want to go to medical school, It's just a question of whether I start this year or, explore this new path that I didn't expect for one more year, and then go back to school. I think I will always want to be running, at least in some capacity, probably competitively for many more years. But doing both that and medical school, I think, is going to be something that I'll have to figure out, just like I had to figure out running, you know, intensely while balancing academics in college. So I think it could be beneficial to have one more year to figure out trail running a little bit more before I try to balance it with something else.
Multifaceted. You have so much depth and so many different things that you are just trying and experimenting with and figuring out. It's exciting to see. It's exciting to watch. Okay. Coming back to running with this gap year and discovering the trails, discovering that you are good at them and winning prize money in your first race, talk a little bit about what sort of ideas that opened for you in terms of like what you might do next. You pretty quickly escalated your trail career from there. So talk about after that first race, what sort of ideas or inspiration did that ignite in you for what you wanted to do with running?
Yeah, so I think after that first race, I loved it. It was awesome. I think what also stuck out to me a lot was how welcoming and kind everyone in the trail community was. I feel like
Mm.
everyone came up to talk to me, and like I think everyone knew each other, and I was one of the only people that they didn't know. And it was cool to be able to meet so many new people who now some of them have become some of my best friends, which is awesome. But I think from the competitive aspect of it, I really enjoyed it. And it, I really didn't know what it meant because with trail, like the time is so irrelevant. That's definitely a difference from track because
It's
you
hard
just
to interpret. Yeah.
it's exactly very hard to interpret. And like, so I knew that I wanted to try some more trail races. They had a 25K, uh, like maybe a month later, SoCal Trail. So I did that and I loved that. And then I kind of started thinking about whether I wanted to start, uh, competing, kind of on the national level and see how I could stack up there. So I signed up for the USATF 50K, trail championships, which was at the end of August or mid August. And then I came in third at that race. That was really hard. Also, I was not prepared for that long I was because I had trained and I was still kind of just doing my own thing at this point. I didn't have a coach. But I had done several pretty long runs, so I was ready, but I also was not ready for what it would feel like to be like racing for that long a distance. And I definitely
Yeah.
started way too fast. But I loved that and it was really fun. So I decided after that I wanted to try to qualify for OCC, the UTMB race, the shorter one though. Wasn't planning to longer distances yet. So I ran Big Bear Kodiak, which was it was like the America's major. So the top 10 qualified for OCC, and I did place top 10. So I'm planning on running there in August. But in that race, I think I was finishing really fast, and feeling really good. I took a wrong turn, so I ran like an extra mile, which kind of
Mm.
sucked. But like the whole time I was like I felt like I was hunting, like trying to catch back up, which honestly made it more fun even if I didn't place quite as high as I might have otherwise. Which top 5 I got prize money and I was 6th. So I was a little sad about that, but it wasn't too big a deal. It was still really it was still a really fun race, and I qualified for OCC, which that was like my primary goal. Um, and I felt really good finishing, and I was like, I feel like I could have kept running. Like maybe I should try the longer distances. So I had been thinking about Black Canyon because I've spent a lot of time training in Flagstaff, and it's very close in Arizona. And my thought was that I could go train in Flagstaff and get to train on the course a few times. And also the fact that I think downhill running is probably one of my strengths. I love running fast downhill. And with it being the net downhill, I was like, that looks awesome. Also, a faster course. So the overall time on feet is going to be shorter. So I feel like I would say if anyone wants to run their first 100K, that's a great one to do. It was actually full. So I was like, after Kodiak, I think this is actually like the day after Kodiak, I put myself on the wait list and I was like, well, if I get off it, it's meant to be. I'll try 100K. If not, I'll just run a few more 50Ks, maybe think about doing 100K later. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. But I definitely wanted to start trying to compete at the world class level to see where I could stack up against that competition. So as much as it is fun to win races, it's also fun to get your ass kicked sometimes. And you learn a lot more from that, I think, often. So
Totally.
obviously I did get off the wait list. And I ended up, I got off the wait list and I trained in Flagstaff for like the month leading up to the race, and got to go. The start was only a little over an hour from Flagstaff, so I drove down to the course a few times. Had some awesome training buddies and friends who ran with me or like helped drop off / pick up, so that I could run just point to point on the course because it's a point to point course, and then I could see twice as much of the course, as opposed to if I would have to run back. The first time I ran on the course, I planned it all out. I was like, this is gonna be perfect. I parked it where I was starting and I scheduled an Uber to pick me up at the end. And like I got the Uber, it was scheduled. I like had the driver's name. He was supposed to pick me up at like 7:30 p.m. So just as it was getting dark, which becomes relevant later in the story. Um, so I had planned to run like 20 miles, I think. So I was probably like 18 miles in and maybe even 19. And I like get a notification on my phone that my Uber canceled. Like as I'm a mile away from my car, like 15 minutes before he's supposed to, or from the end, 15 minutes before he's supposed to pick me up. And like it is kind of in the middle of nowhere desert. So I like was just waiting on the side of the road, tried to schedule another Uber, couldn't, like I tried like 3 times. It's like no driver can be found. And then I tried Lyft and I tried like 3 times and it kept saying like estimate in 2 minutes, estimate in 1 minute. And then it would just reset. And then I called like 2 different taxi services to see if they could pick me up and it was out of range. So I was
Oh
like,
my
well,
gosh.
I have to get back. So there's like a Dollar Tree on the side of the road right where I stopped. So I ran into the Dollar Tree, bought some Rice Krispie treats and energy drink, and just like sat on the curb for a couple seconds and drank the energy drink. Had a Rice Krispie, stuffed the other ones in my vest. Luckily, I did have my phone, and it was also dark at this point, and I was just using my phone flashlight. And then I ran all the way back to my car on the side of the highway. So
Wow.
those are, I feel like I get myself into those kind of experiences a little too often for comfort.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. But you planned it so well. Like
I
I
know
was
I
about to
did.
tell
I was
you
like,
I
this wasn't for
respected
my
that plan.
fault. Yeah, I planned it because like this is the perfect plan. So after that, I had friends come with me because I was not risking that. Actually, one time I did the same thing, but instead I parked at the finish and Ubered to the start. So that way, like I was finishing in my car.
Okay.
I couldn't take granted. As long as the Uber took the start, I was good. But so I ended up getting when I told my coach about it, he's like, well, you got a great big stimulus. And, sometimes trail running is about the adventure of it and stuff like that happens. So luckily I was safe. I think that was like the biggest concern. I considered just trying to hitchhike back, but decided running was probably the safer option.
Probably. And like how much you learn in an experience like that. Like
Yeah.
you're out there and you got to figure it out. And there is so much to be learned, not only just like the practical things like stopping at the Dollar Tree and getting yourself some snacks to go back, but like the mental side of it of like how
Oh,
tough are you that you ran like almost 20 miles and then just turned around and did it again without that expectation.
luckily,
Like
like a little bit shorter on the way back because I took the road. So it was probably only like 30 total because like the trail had been like winding through, and the highway was just straight back. But that's why I was like, it's only like 10 more miles. I can do that. Like, that's not too bad.
still, though, in the dark, and there is a difference between 20 miles and 30 miles, especially when you've
me
planned your
saying,
day and yeah,
me saying there's no difference is probably a sign that I'm definitely meant to be ultra runner.
I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. It's just 10 more miles, whatever, it'll be fine. Real quick before we get to Black Canyon, we can't skip over this because I learned this, in the pre-race interview, and I need you to tell this story as well. You coming off of having all this fun on the trails and really enjoying what you're doing, you also ran a road marathon before coming over to Black Canyon. Talk a little bit about that because there is a story that goes with that as well.
Yeah, I did skip over that, I apologize. So I think what you've probably already found talking to me, is that, like, the past few months has been me figuring it out, like, not sure what I wanna do next, and I think that's something that I always wanna keep exploring and seeing what my options are. I think often people just get set on one thing and then they're too content in that one thing, or even often not content, which is more the issue, and just be like, "Well, I decided I'd do this, so I'll do it." So I think being open to exploring the different things that I could pursue is what led me to the path that I'm on now in trail running. That is something that I have love so much, and I don't think I would have discovered it if I hadn't been, like, trying all these different things. So originally, after I graduated, I did know I wanted to run a marathon at one point. So
Okay.
pretty shortly after I graduated, before I even discovered trail, I had signed up to do CIM. And I actually was doing it as a fundraiser for the organization Girls on the Run. And as part of the fundraiser, I was gonna attempt to break the world record for the fastest marathon run in a skirt. Because what's more girl power than that, right? And so I think the idea often people have that, being strong and powerful and being feminine are something that's like mutually exclusive, which I don't think is the case at all. You can be both at the same time, and more. And that was kind of the idea of running in the skirt. One of my other side passions is embroidery. And I embroidered my top that I wore with Mulan, and half of her face is her like dressed up, like in the opening scenes where she's like all made up as a woman, and then the other one is a warrior and like with the sword in the middle. So
I love that.
had a lot of
Ah,
fun making that design, personalizing it, and also it was like kind of something meaningful to me. I also loved that movie growing up.
so good.
But so I think the world record was like 3 it was probably it wasn't very fast. I maybe like 3:30 or something like that, and I knew I had done similar paces on my almost marathon training runs, so I had already decided that I was gonna do Black Canyon. But I had committed to doing Siena, so I figured I'd kind of just run it as, what my coach said would be like a focused long effort, so hard but not all out racing. So I did that in December. Ran a lot faster than I expected. I think I ran a 2:41. I won my age group, which I just recently found out because they mailed me a plaque in the mail, and I didn't know until I got that plaque. So I think I that was faster than I had, like, I think, wanted to run when I had solely been focusing on the marathon and racing it
Oh,
all out. So that was cool to see, because I do think the trail training does translate over. I think I'd love to do another road marathon. I think maybe CIM this year, if I don't do one sooner than that, which I think I probably won't, because for now my heart is on the trails. But with a little bit more focused training and racing and seeing how fast I can run, because I think that would be really fun. Also, I think the course at CIM lends itself a lot to trail runners, just because it does have some hills. I mean, they don't feel bad compared to trail racing, but
Compared to, right?
definitely for a road runner, I think it's considered a hilly course.
There were a lot of trail runners at the race this year. It was really cool to see so many trail runners putting their legs in a fast road race and seeing how that went. Did you meet anybody there that is from the trail community that you connected with?
So I think I was probably the reason I ran so much faster than I expected and intended to is that I found myself like behind Courtney Walter for probably like 18 minutes of the race. And obviously just someone I look up to a ton. Even just barely becoming aware of the sport of trail running. So it was super, super cool to get to share some miles with her.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We just couldn't skip over that story. World record for the fastest marathon run in a skirt in your first marathon in the midst of trail training. Just a really cool side story there. And I love the deeper meaning that went into it for you two and for the Girls on the Run organization at the same time. Okay. Coming back to Black Canyon, you are training in the area, training on the race course, some purposeful, some accidental. um, talk a little bit about we already covered this in our pre-race interview, but for those who didn't, just talk a little bit about your feelings coming into the race and like what you felt you might be capable of, how you felt lining up with this really deep field, and just sort of feelings as you were getting ready to toe the line for your first 100K at this race.
Yeah, I think I expected to be a lot more nervous because it's a big thing to take on running 100K when you've never run that far before. But really, I think I was just super excited going into it, knowing like this is something I've never done before. I really don't have anything to lose. There's no expectations on me. I can really only exceed expectations, which I think that's a special place to be. Like probably somewhere I'll never be again after running Black Canyon. But it was, I think, training. I had just been really loving the longer runs, feeling like I could not only could I keep going, but I wanted to keep going, even doing like 20+ mile runs. So I did feel like I was ready. And I think I trusted my coach that he had prepared me and he was telling me I was ready. And just feeling confident in myself and my abilities, and also knowing that if it didn't happen, I could try another 100K. I could do it again. I don't think I think something that has transformed my experience competing is just not, I think I mentioned this earlier, not being afraid of failure, but just going for it. Obviously, logically, I wasn't going to go out at like 5:30 pace, although some people did. And it still ran pretty well too. I was just excited to try something new, challenge myself, do the best I could. I did feel confident that if things went right, I could be very competitive. So just trusting myself, trusting my training, trusting that I was prepared, and that at the very least, it was going to be a really cool adventure.
So talk a little bit about the day itself. I want to kind of hear the full breakdown. You at the start line, some people start at 5:30 pace. Talk a little bit about just that start line energy. You do run around a track and straight down a road, and it is a very fast start if you want it to be. So what was that start line like for you?
Yeah, it was, I feel like I like barely, it's kind of a blur. I barely remember it. I, I said that I was so prepared, but I was not prepared for that. I think that, something my coach told me that I think I'm really glad he said to me, because I definitely have felt this way with past races, and certainly felt this way at Black Canyon the first 400 meters. And I think honestly the first like 5 miles when everyone was running really, really fast. I was like, oh my gosh. He said, there's going to be some point in the race where you're going to feel like you're in over your head, and everyone feels that. Like, it's inevitable that you're going to feel that way at some point, but just don't let that get to you, and kind of keep going, be focused on your race. And I think just remembering that, because the first few miles, I started fast. My heart rate was really high, but I didn't start that fast. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm still getting past. Like, I kept getting past on more and more people. And I was like, oh, these people are like, they don't even seem like they're trying, and I'm already really tired. But then I kind of settled in. I think it's honestly often chaos, like the first few miles of any ultra, at least from my limited experience in the 3 ultras that I've run. And I think once I got to probably around mile 10 to 20, I think was my favorite part of the race, because I had locked into a rhythm that was fast but comfortable, and I just kept one by one, like, clipping people off, passing people. Although my vest broke at mile 2, like the bottom latch of my running vest, and it was just bouncing and hitting me. So by the end, my ribs were like completely bruised, like chafed.
Oh,
I could barely, I often sleep on my stomach. I couldn't do that for like a week.
oh
So
my
that was,
gosh.
I think that's the first thing that threw me off. And then right after that, my shoe came untied, and I was like, I don't want to stop to tie my shoe already. But after I recovered from that, mile 10, 20 was super fun. Passing people who like I'd recognized and I knew their names, like professional trail runners, which was really cool. And then coming through Bumblebee, which was the first aid station. I think running on the course was helpful for sure, because I knew what to expect. I knew where there were going to be tougher points, and I knew where there were faster points that I could push the pace a little bit, if I felt good. So coming out of Bumblebee, there's a pretty big climb. And honestly, it felt easier on race day after 20 miles than it did when I was doing it almost fresh in training. So I don't know, I think also a lot of I think it's especially applicable in ultras, just because so much of it is mental. But, I was reading some research on this too. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a neuroscience of running, included. But how you feel and how you perform is often indicated by, I guess, your perception of how hard something's going to be. So if you're expecting something to be easy, when it gets hard, it's just so hard and you can't deal with it. But I think expecting certain parts to be hard and knowing this is gonna hurt, it's gonna be painful, is what allowed me to persevere through those harder moments in the race, and be able to deal with that pain, because I knew it was coming, and I knew how to deal with it, from training and just past races, past experiences. So
Love that.
I did take a hard fall. Well, I took a hard fall. My hand is still. I took it over 2 weeks later. I took a hard fall at mile 10. I think it was my first one. And then I jumped back up, but I could feel the blood. I was like, just don't look at it. And then I also felt pretty bad right after Bumblebee, around 20, so early 20s. And I stubbed my toe. I think I may have broken my toe. I'm not sure. It still doesn't feel 100%, but it's a lot better. And just luckily I had some Tylenol on my vest, which I think saved me. My knees were bruised too. But I think a lot of it is just about learning to keep going. It was at mile 32, I think that's where you're on pacers. My one of my good friends, Zoe, paced me through 51. So once she came, it was just, I think it's awesome to I know there's been some discourse about whether pacers should be allowed in elite racing. But I think for me, it was really special to be able to share my experience with my friends who I care about so much. And also it's so much more fun to be able to run with your friends. And I mean, I was in 7th, I think, from the first aid station to the finish. Maybe I don't
Wow.
think there's any back and forth at that point. And I was pretty much alone for most of the race, even though I was in, the upper half. So it was just fun to be able to run with a couple of my friends, because my friend Will takes me from the Deep Canyon Ranch, whatever the mile 50, 51 is to the finish. So it's fun to be able to share that with my friends, and also just having them. I don't think it's so much for like, oh, they were running a specific pacing, like, because pacers on the track, it's very different. You have someone like just clip off 32s, or 64s, whatever. But just to have them there, kind of for moral support. Also, just it made it really fun for me. Whereas if it had been just in pain in the middle of the desert alone, getting to share that with my friends was super fun. Very special experience, and also just my whole crew was awesome. They had like everything I did. They were so on top of it. Definitely we're working on smoothing out some of our transitions for next time. But it was super fun to have so many people that I care about and care about me, supporting me in doing this.
I'm interested to hear about your second half because this was double the distance that you had ever done before. And obviously, it was a huge asset to have friends and to have company for that second half. But just elaborate a little bit on sort of the feelings and the way that you worked through challenges, what you feel like was or maybe even like what you feel like you did really well, not just the challenges and things that you worked through and learned, but both, especially coming into that second half when it's
Yeah.
completely new and all new territory.
I think with something like this, there obviously is a huge learning curve, because I've never done anything like this at all before. And that's kind of why I am excited to try it again. Because I think that just even if my fitness and everything is the exact same, having that experience, I think I can run a lot better. Just knowing what to expect, just like I said, knowing what to expect on the course, I think made a big difference. But just knowing like how I'm gonna feel after 30 miles. So coming into like the 50K, which I also ran a 50K PR, which is exciting. Not
That is exciting.
expecting 100K, but it was also a lot faster of a course than I had ever run for any of the other. I'm not saying any of the other 50Ks I've done so many. I've done two. For either of the other 50Ks I've done. But so I think coming into the 50K, I felt really good. And I think from like the Black Canyon aid station mile 37, I was gaining and closing the gap on 5 and 6. I think I was only a few minutes off at that point, which is very exciting. Especially because I think that might have been at that point like a one ticket spot, which that wasn't something that I was considering too much going into the race. But just at that point, I remember like realizing that, and just the emotion hit me of like how exciting that was and how cool it was to, like, I even said this, I think, to Zoe, who was pacing me at the time. Like, yes, it would be awesome to get it, but even like at that point, I didn't even care if I got fifth or sixth. The fact that I was in the spot that I was competing potentially to be in contention for that was just so exciting. And that's kind of what I love about racing. I love competing. And obviously I do want to win, but for this being my first time, I didn't have high expectations, but just that being in the picture and like something that I kind of have dreamed of, couldn't even dreamed of running this race like 3 months ago, was super awesome, super special.
It's right
And
there. Yeah.
and I even said to Zoe, I was like, dude, I was built for this. Like, I was feeling mile 40, I was feeling so good. I was like, I'm getting, like, I'm gonna catch stuff. And then mile 45, like, it completely changed. I was like, okay, I just have to finish. Like, I can't let anyone catch me. I think there's a pretty big climb at that point. Cottonwood Gulch is the area around. Everyone I talked to was like, that's hell. Like, if you've been in Cottonwood Gulch, you've been to hell. And it was tough, but I was holding on. I think at that point, I knew I could hold my position, and like I probably wasn't gonna catch anyone ahead of me, especially because they were a lot more experienced than I was, and like they probably knew what they were doing a lot better than me, and then paced themselves to be prepared for, like, I think everyone slows a lot in second half because not only are you tired, but it's a much, much harder second 50K. as opposed to the
Mm-hmm.
first day, which was like almost all downhill with a couple small climbs. So I think at that point, and also it started like to hit me, but like I was cramping. I had been on top of, so one thing I think I did well that I'm proud of is the fueling, hydration, electrolytes. Maybe the electrolytes I need to like figure out a little bit more, just because I think, everyone sweats differently and loses different electrolytes. And also just it being so hot. I had ice bananas, which were awesome. And I think that helped a lot, with the cooling. But yeah, I was on top of the fueling the whole way. I pretty high carb fueling. I did like 100 grams carbs per hour, through the finish. I was happy with my stomach. Like, I didn't feel good, but it held out for the most part. Had to stop near the end a few times for the bathroom. But tried to make it as efficient as possible. I think, yeah, so I definitely, like, near last 20 miles started having like numbness in my body and like my hands. I like couldn't move them. So that was a little bit scary. But
Yeah.
I wasn't too, like, I was like, I think I'm fine. If I start feeling like I'm gonna pass out, that's a different story. But just kept going, and I think just learning how to keep running no matter what is a skill that really is only applicable in ultras. But I think that was what carried me to the finish, and also just the last. So Zoe was with me to mile 50, 51. And then the last 12, my friend Will, who like kept running like 10 meters ahead of me. I was like, you're not even pacing me. Like, I was pissed at him, but he did pull me along. And then I got the sub 9 hour finish, which I was happy about too. But the last, it was definitely a new experience, those last 30 miles, but I would say I really enjoyed it till like mile 45. And then I was like, okay, I could be done.
Okay, coming across the finish line, you did it. You did it successfully, and I watched your finish. I was at the finish line and came across just completely exhausted, sat down in the dirt, soaking wet. But I could.
Get up and walk, and I was like, no, just let me sit. I don't need to get up this whole line. Just let me sit here.
But I could also feel that, like, you had fully spent yourself on the course on that day, and that has to come with a lot of pride and just, like, sense of accomplishment. Talk a little bit about those feelings when you finally did it, cross the finish line, and you are allowed to stop.
Yeah, definitely. It's a different kind of fatigue because I think I feel like the first maybe 6 hours, I was pushing pretty hard, like maintaining a pretty high heart rate. And which I wasn't aware of at the time, but when I looked at it afterwards, and like feeling like I could keep moving. Then the last like 3 hours, probably, like I said, going out to like mile 45-ish. It was just like fatigue, like legs could barely move. Like I remember I fell at one point. I'm like I couldn't get up because my calf was cramping, and like I think it's different because in a track race, you're like a shorter track race, you're firing out all cylinders fully, but like almost I was like I feel like aerobically I can go faster, but my legs are not going to go any faster. And just I think the last like 10 miles, all I was thinking about was making it to the finish line so that I could lay down on the ground. And that's why when we saw me laying down in the dirt, it's the best feeling ever. Just that I made it, and like the last, I feel like I think I was, according to the people who were watching, moving pretty fast the last like 200 meters. Just because I was so ready to be done. But then I finished and I was like, all right, what's the next 100K? And sign off. So it was very feeling of relief finishing. Also, yes, feeling an accomplishment for sure. Like a little bit of disbelief. I was like, wow, I actually did it. Like I expected there to be a point in the race where it's like, I don't know if I could finish, but I don't think I ever felt that. Like it was hard and I was slowing down at some points, but I always knew that I was could finish. Like I knew unless, I dropped it on a trail, I was going to be able to finish. And it's exciting. It's also exciting, the last, like, part of the race when you already know how it's going to go. Like, if you
Mhm.
won, you actually, maybe for the winners, maybe they didn't know because they're like a minute apart or something. But like once you
Mm.
already know you've basically done it and no one's gonna catch you, you're gonna finish. I feel like that's often the best part of ultras because you're running and you're actually getting to enjoy it and you're not so much, you kind of stop, unless it's a very close finish, you kind of stop being in competition mode for the end of the race and you get to enjoy the experience, enjoy what you're doing, and then you basically did it.
I love that. I love that. Okay, we're 2 weeks after the race. Talk a little bit about how your initial recovery went and how your recovery is going now at this point, 2 weeks later. You did say you just raced last weekend, so
Yeah. So the race was on. Well, last weekend I did run a race, but it was more for fun. I didn't. I would say I was racing, but it was super fun regardless. So right after the race, I was probably laying. Well, I moved from laying at the finish line to laying on a blanket. And and the race was on Valentine's Day. So a couple of my girlfriends who crewed me wanted to go out to this karaoke bar, and they're like, "Do you feel like coming with us?" And I'm like, "Oh my god!" I was like, and that was my roommate, and she just like was smiling at me. I'm like, I can't say no to you, and so they we went to the karaoke bar in Scottsdale, but I couldn't walk, so one of my friends carried me.
wow.
Like she piggybacked me the whole night, which was super fun. And I basically just sat and watched them sing karaoke, which was awesome. So I was doing okay for the hours after the race, other than the fact that like I could barely walk. And like the hotel we were staying in, of course, was second floor, no elevator, all the way at the end of the hall. And I just looking down the hall, I was just gonna wait for the car. I'm like, you can change. Um, so I was doing okay after, and then the next day my mom and I drove back from Phoenix to, LA, and I say my mom and I, but she did all the driving, and I mostly just slept. And then I came home and took like a 3-hour nap, woke up, ate dinner, and then went back to sleep for like 12 hours. So I'd say the first 3 days were pretty tough. I think for anyone racing an ultra 50K or 100K, is really, really hard. And like your body takes some time to recover from it. But I do think it being your first time is like an extra adaptation because my first 50K, I'd say was almost this bad. Like I couldn't walk. And it also
Okay.
had a lot of elevation gain. But then my second 50K, like, was so like exponentially better. So I think the human body's fascinating because it can adapt to things very well. But your first time is always going to be tough. So the first couple of days, I really did not do much. I barely like move. I think the Monday I tried to work and for like 2 hours and then I had to clock out because I couldn't do it.
Well, this was one of the questions I had for you. Neuroscience background. Did you have that like sort of brain fog that listeners will probably be familiar if you've ever done a long ultra? It's not just body fatigue. Like you do get this like brain fog effect sort of when you've done something really hard and really intense like that.
Yeah, so I say like I didn't try to, well, definitely like I barely remember going into the mile 58 station. Like during the actual race, I think I was just like so like I felt like so overwhelmed and all my crew ran up to me and started like stuffing gels in my pocket, pouring water on me, and I was like, what's going on? But I think the couple days, the way that I describe it is like how you feel when you have a flu and you're not sick anymore, but you just feel like weak and like you can't focus. So I guess a little bit of the brain fog. I don't feel like I was trying to do anything too academically rigorous. So I didn't notice my like mental capabilities, but like I really didn't feel like doing anything. Like it wasn't just that like I didn't want to get up and walk or run. It was like I didn't want to even like sit in bed play on the computer kind of thing. Like I really like didn't want to do anything. So I'd say like Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday I definitely started to feel a little better. Wednesday I was like pretty almost back to normal. I would say back to normal, but normal level of soreness. And then so I didn't do any running or anything. Thursday I went for like a decently long walk, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday I cross trained on the arc trainer / elliptical. I'm a big fan of those for cross training. And I also think for me that just does not have the same level of muscular stress, but still gets blood flowing, which I think is good for recovery, and then some like aerobic stimulus too. And then Monday is normally my off day, so I think I took Monday off, and then went back into a pretty, I would say normal, like in terms of the mileage I was doing, probably like a little more than half of my normal mileage week. But then this past week, I think was running like 6 miles, 8 miles, got up to like 10 on weekends, and then even did some short hill strides on Sunday and then today. And starting to feel like I'm getting the bounce back in my legs. I would say I don't think I'm in the spot to like run like a long race or a fast race yet, but I'm feeling normal jogging. Like I haven't done anything too fast other than the short hill strides. But starting to feel good, starting to think about when I want to do the next one. But haven't decided anything for sure yet.
So that was exactly my next question. You have a lot of decisions and things to choose and things to figure out on the horizon here. So no plans yet for an official next race, but it sounds like you definitely want to do the 100K again.
Yeah, I think I do, just because I feel like, again, there's a learning curve, and I'm still figuring it out. And I mean, I think it went well. It was pretty much like, I'd say there's a few things I could have refined in the moment that too. Like I think I'm a perfectionist. I'm always gonna look back and be like, well, I could have done this better and this and this. But I do think that I felt like it was a great race for me. It was a great start. I was super happy with it. But I do think I can improve on that performance, and I want to have the opportunity to do that. So I feel like still figuring out the distance for sure. Still figuring out if it is for sure what I want to focus on, or if I maybe like 50Ks better. I do want to do some more 50Ks this year. I'm doing OCC, at least that's the plan for right now. And then I'll figure out the rest of the season. Kind of like I was hesitant to set anything in stone until I raced Black Canyon, because I wanted to see like, oh, if that went really well, then yeah, maybe I'll try to do another 100K. Or if I absolutely hate it and never want to do that again, they'll probably set up for a 50K or even some Star Ultra stuff. But I think I do see some more 100Ks in my future. I want to be conservative. I don't want to rush into it too fast. I want to make sure I'm fully recovered. I have time. And I also, especially, I feel like I'm pretty young. I have many more years to do this, so I don't feel the need to run like tons of long races yet, but definitely have a few big ones that I want to focus on, and then go from there.
I think that's a mature mindset, and I'm glad that you have it also. You have so much time, and there are so many things available to you that will be interesting to pursue and explore and figure out over time. Excited to see where you decide to go between now and OCC, but we'll wait and watch and see what comes your way. I want to bring us to a close. I feel like we've been talking for a long time. I don't want to keep you all evening.
Oh, yeah.
Final question that I have for you is going to have you reflect a little bit. If you could go back and give your high school self, or maybe I'll even add in there any high schooler who is interested in taking a similar path or pursuing running as more than just their high school sport or hobby. If you could give your high school self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, so it's funny you asked this because I was actually I volunteered at a camp for high schoolers just over a month ago. And so the camp is for high schoolers from like underserved areas. Many of them are like first generation immigrants. And like teaching them about their options in future career, college, helping them prepare for that because really know they don't really know what their options are because they don't have someone who's done that before that can show them that path. And I was talking to one of the students yesterday, and I honestly said to her, if I give you one piece of advice, it would, because she was talking about how she was so set on like this future that she envisions for herself. And I think I was in a lot of ways like that too. But I think if I have one piece of advice that I give to myself or anyone, runner or not, is to be open-minded about the paths that may unfold for you in the future. I think it's great to have goals and things that you want to accomplish, and you should shoot for those goals. But also, life is never going to turn out exactly how you envision it. So be open-minded to the different opportunities that may arise, that may be different from what you even could have imagined you would ever be doing. Because I think pursuing those kinds of opportunities can often lead you to places that are even more exciting and more beautiful than what you originally would have envisioned for yourself.
I love that. I think that's fantastic advice. Awesome. Ellaney, thank you for taking so much of your time this evening to fill us in on your race, to introduce us to who you are between the miles, and words of wisdom here along the way as well. It has been a real joy to get to hear more of your story, and I'm excited to share it as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Hmm.